This is my website, ArchSmarter. And again, I'm Michael Kilkelly, trained as an architect, and then just through interest have kind of transitioned myself into a programmer. But one of the things that I've always felt strongly about is this idea of learning in public. So a lot of the stuff that I've developed and the stuff that I'll show you right now as part of the toolbox are tools that I've developed, and then mostly because I was curious about. So I've been, curious about programming, curious about Dynamo, and I would develop these tools as a way to kind of further my knowledge and then put them out in the world and see what happens. So it's kind of an experiment here, but over the years, I've built up a collection. So if you're on archsmarter.com, you can go to Show Me Tools, and the first item right here is Toolbox for Revit. And it's actually, I'll show you it in a second. It's a free library, a free resource library, where I've collected various projects, not projects necessarily, but project tools that I've built over the years. And it's just a quick registration. You can enter your name and your email, and that will give you access to something that looks a little bit like this. So this is the toolbox itself, and there's kind of 4 pieces to it. There's Revit
and these
macros.
are free, right, Michael?
They are free. Yes. Yep.
That's so amazing. What an amazing thing that you've given to the industry.
So there's, we have a collection of Revit macros. I have some Dynamo scripts, Excel templates, and then there's some PDF kind of cheat sheets and guides. So the macros themselves, if you click on here, these are actually, they're not quite add-ins and not quite Dynamo. So macros kind of sit in between between Dynamo and between an add-in. And when I first started getting interested in coding, I started writing macros. And macros are actually embedded inside an RVT file. So if you go here and you download, you can click on the download the macros file, and there's a zip file that contains a whole bunch of RVTs. And there's one for each version of Revit. If you open up that macro file, there we go. It looks kind of like this. And you can go up to manage, and you go to the macro manager. And these are all of the macros that are contained inside the file. So you'll see here, there's tools, add parameters, families, align views, duplicate views. I won't go through all of them, but there's a whole bunch. And again, these are just tools that I've been developed over the years. And mostly because I was curious about, okay, how do I do that using the Revit API? How do I program that? So I put this collection together here. And again, all you have to do is open up this RVT file, and then you can run it on any file that you have in Revit. So for example, if I have, we're just looking at the good old Revit sample file. Once I have that file up, I can go again to manage, macro manager, and I can run, replace font, and it will run it on this specific file. So I just go ahead, I can click run, and then I select my font, Arial, choose a new font. Let's see what happens here if we do this. I didn't test this before, so change it to Arial Black, and it's going to go through and basically, replace all my fonts just like that. So again, macros are kind of that, they're sort of in between. They run fast. They would run faster than a Dynamo script, but they're not exactly an add-in. So they're kind of that in between. So that's available as part of the, let me pull that back up. Here we go. As part of the toolbox. And there's also there's a video here if you want a refresher on how to run a macro. You can take a look at it. Now, as part of the toolbox too, I have a bunch of Dynamo script files that you can download here. There's a zip file in that. And then I went through a period where I got really into Excel. I was like, I didn't know, what is a pivot table? And so I started doing some research into Excel, and then I started programming in Excel. So I have a few Excel templates in here as well, just for good measure. One of them is just an Excel file that has a bunch of Excel formulas, so you can see exactly how they work in practice. And then the other one is this tool that I built that would check out PDFs against DWG files. So it was for a specific project, but it was pretty cool because it would do this file checking operation. So I threw that in there as well. I think it's more good as an example of what you can do in Excel. So this was really an Excel file, but it was also acting as an application. So Excel can do a lot of stuff You just got to get your hands into it and learn a little bit of VBA. But it's always, it's always fun when you can make Excel do something that you didn't think it could do. So that's in there as well. And then the last bit here are guides and cheat sheets. So I have a Revit template checklist. I have what's called the Path to Revit Mastery. So if you're wondering how to become, we were talking about Star Wars earlier. So if you want to become a Revit Jedi, like this is basically some skills that you would need to acquire to get that level of mastery. So definitely take a look at that. So all of these resources are part of the toolbox, and the toolbox is a free download. And you'll also get to my weekly Thursday top 5 links from interesting stuff that I find out about AEC that week. So that gets in, that's a free bonus in the toolbox. If going back to the macros, I have a link in here as well about more tools, which is, I have an add-in, which is called the Smart Pack. So in the Smart Pack, I took the most popular Revit macros and I turned them into an add-in. So that's something that's available. Right now it's available for purchase, but I'm transitioning it over to an open source project. So that's going to happen in the next few weeks. So that will be, in addition to the toolbox, that will be a freely available tool as well.
That is fantastic.
That's my tip.
That is really, really great. We do have a few questions.
Sure.
Any IT or security kind of features that we should worry about when we download macros?
So you will get a notice when you open up the file. You shouldn't have any issues with my macros, but if you think about, in theory, somebody could have a malicious macro in a Revit file. It's kind of like, Word macros, Excel macros. The odds are extremely low. I don't think the hacker world is looking at specifically the AEC industry, but you are executing code. So, things can happen. For the most part, though, with macros, they need to be run. They're not necessarily going to run automatically. So you have to actually, purposefully click run.
And that would be
the same. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fantastic. I also found on Autodesk University your class on creating macros, which I went ahead and linked underneath of your
cool. Yep.
Getting Started with Macros on AU 2015. So I'm sure that is a great class, and as well as many other classes that you had. Revit customization for mortals was even a previous one. So make sure you check those out. Thank you so much, Michael.
Welcome. Just one last point. When you do open up a macro file, you will get this security alert. So you have the option to enable or disable macros. So obviously, if you're going to use them, you want to enable it. But if you're not sure, you can click that disable macro button. And then,
great tip.
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.